Thank you for attending our first ever webinar produced by Crew Austin. While we have canceled our April and May in-person events, we're adapting to new methods of education and engagement by offering virtual opportunities such as today's program. Today's webinar is being recorded to share later. So only the presenters will be shown on the screen with supporting presentation slides. Attendees will be allowed to post questions in the Q&A feature. We expect today's presentation to last no more than 45 minutes. So before we get started, let's cover some association announcements. Today's featured partner is CBI Group. Please welcome Brent Warrilow, founder and director, who will speak on their behalf.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. Appreciate the introduction. I'm glad to be involved in this virtual Crew Austin get together. So that's great, and congratulations on the creativity and making this happen and keeping continuity. It's a great boost to all the members, I'm sure, when we can have webinars and continue to see and talk to folks that we know and learn more about other companies to give us some sense of a feeling of normalcy, which I think is important at this time. So I very much appreciate that. So CBI Group is an office furniture provider. Ultimately, we have a unique and disruptive approach. So if there's just one thing to take away from this, is that CBI Group is a manufacturer of furniture that takes products direct to end users, cutting out middle markups and middlemen or women across the way. So that's what makes us disruptive and unique, is we're faster, better, and more cost effective than the traditional route of sourcing office furniture solutions. And that's backed up by a deep team of project managers, designers, installation team leaders, and installers as well. So I think these slides are going to get sent around. Amy, is that right? And they'll be able to drill into that a little bit more. Good. And then just for the interest of everyone, one thing that we've pivoted to, and there's a lot of conversation around what companies are doing to find opportunities at this time with the economic impact of the virus. And we have, through our sourcing and manufacturing capabilities, been able to source and provide a small but deep grouping of sanitation and safety products for the workplace and for any industries. There'll be information being sent out on that today that you'll probably all get, and we'd love if Crew could perhaps share that around the members as well, but that will include things like face masks, hand sanitizer, disinfectant for office spaces, and kind of a back to work pack for folks when they do go back to the office, that they'll have a small amount of PPE that their companies can provide. Some more information here on CBI Group about our process, some featured projects, and testimonial there from DCI engineers. Great partner. And then this is what I was just mentioning earlier. So I think we can share some more information on this, if that's okay, Amy. We didn't talk about that at the start, but I've just thought about it now, really, that perhaps we could share that across the members of Crew and then share that out further. But we'll have some great products, some great services that we can offer as companies prepare for a safe return back to the workplace and what that looks like. So I'd be glad to share more information on that.
Thank you, CBI.
It from me, unless, good, I could talk for longer if you want, but I think you've got more important things to get to.
Thank you, Brent. And thank you, CBI.
No problem.
I want to thank all of our sponsors for supporting Crew Austin. Even in these tough times, we rely on these partners to support our endeavors. Please join us for a weekly virtual happy hour on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. If you register online, you'll get the link and you can join any Wednesday between now and May 27th. Also be on the lookout for other opportunities that are coming soon. We wish we could be in person to announce this year's member awards. We're proud to celebrate the standout achievements and leadership qualities exhibited by our members. So I'd like to congratulate the following two members for their achievements. Delee Becker with Beck Commercial received our Entrepreneurial Spirit Award, And Jennifer Paisley with Doucette and Associates is our Member of the Year recipient. We'll be sure to do a proper award ceremony when we're able to meet in person in the near future. At this time, I would like to invite Kelly Cloud, our Programs Chair, to introduce today's panelists.
Unfortunately, I don't think Kelly is able to get her audio to work, so I will do the introduction if you don't mind.
Okay.
And we are very pleased to welcome our two presenters today who have been buried deep in the last 2 weeks in the subject matter we're going to cover today. We're thankful that they're taking time out of their schedules to do this today. So I will introduce first, I get my little mouse to work here, Alexis Michael, past president of Crew, now with Southstar Leander branch, serving as their senior vice president, regional credit manager, SBA director. She is very intimate with this subject today. And also Miss Amanda Aaron, our special events chair, and branch executive VP of lending for the Leander Southstar Bank branch. So welcome, ladies, and we look forward to hearing what you have to talk about.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Amanda and I decided today is almost D-Day, and so I'm going to speak, and Amanda's on. She's still working, but she's going to chime in as needed, but we need one of us to be actively working. So today we're going to talk about, there's two loans that came out of the CARES Act that everybody's concerned about. That is the EIDL loan, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL, and then there's the PPP loan, the Paycheck Protection Program. So ultimately, these are the two programs that were passed in the CARES Act that are available to small business owners. The CARES Act does have a multitude of other opportunities for business owners by way of tax stuff and employee relief, but we're not touching any of that today. This is just about the two loans. And so first, I just want to quickly go through, what does this mean? What is an EIDL and what is a PPP? And so the EIDL loan, the big difference between the two is the EIDL loan, you apply through the government. You apply through the SBA website. Banks are not taking those applications. The PPP loan, you apply through your bank. 99% of lenders are only opening up the PPP loan to their current customers. And it's not favoritism, it's not anything along those lines. It's simply because this program is moving so fast that we've already done due diligence on your existing clients. And so you've already got their org docs, you know their relationship, you know their operating history. It just makes it an easier loan to process. Does not mean that only your bank can offer this loan. There are banks out there doing loans for non-current customers, okay? And so start with the EIDL loan. What is that? The loan you apply through the government. It's a maximum of a $2 million loan. It can be used towards eligible working capital expenses. And my understanding is that's fixed debt, payroll, accounts payable, utilities, and other debts and bills. That is specifically written into what the guidance we have been provided. The EIDL loan is up to a 30-year max, and the interest rate is 3.75%. So consider it like a mortgage. I mean, it's a 30-year loan. You're never going to get working capital dollars for 30 years. The maximum a lender will finance working capital is 10 years. So this is cheap money, guys. We were told, and again, we are not originating these, this is just the word on the street, is it takes about 4 weeks from application to approval. And so once you apply online, and if you were one of the first to apply, which was the week after spring break or week of spring break, that week, those applicants did not have the opportunity to apply for the $10,000 grant. So if you have not received follow-up correspondence to apply for that grant, I would follow up with your person in the government who's your, what are we calling them, Amanda?
Their loan agent.
Loan agent, not a loan officer, a loan agent. Follow up with your loan agent. And so the EIDL loan, The $10,000 advance, we are told as recently as this week that it's $1,000 per employee advance. So if you only have 7 employees, your advance is $7,000. We keep getting asked, is that forgivable dollars? Is it a grant? I've heard both. We don't know. Again, these loans are strictly processed through the government. I do know on the EIDL loan that the first payment is deferred for 12 months. And so you will not have a payment due for 12 months. There is no prepayment penalty on those loans, and there is no debt forgiveness piece. And so that's the EIDL. The Paycheck Protection Program is the one that the banks are originating. This is what has our media in a frenzy right now. Ultimately, the program was supposed to last from April 3rd, which is the date you could first apply, through June 30th. The government allocated $349 billion to this program, and the dollars were exhausted in a week and a half. They were exhausted in 14 days. So a program that was supposed to last 3 months was exhausted in 14 days. I can tell you that the amount of volume that was processed in those 14 days is more than the entire SBA has processed in over 14 years. And so the system crashed a bunch of times. We realized getting on at midnight was the best time to get your application in. I mean, it was a doozy, but let me walk you through what the PPP program is, because there's so much misconfusion or misunderstanding. Here's the list of all the updates daily. We're getting daily updates. And so we ask for everybody's patience. It's not your banker's fault. It's the SBA's lack of guidance and constant changing guidance that is creating this confusion. And so the latest and greatest on the PPP loan, it is up to $10 million. The loan amount is based on your trailing 12 months payroll. So Q2, Q3, Q4 of 2019, and Q1 of 2020. We have to take an average of your trailing 12 months payroll, and your maximum loan amount is a multiplier of 2.5 times. So if your average monthly payroll over the trailing 12 months is $10,000, then your maximum loan amount is $25,000, okay? So that's number one, we determined your maximum loan amount. Number two, the term of the loan is 2 years and the interest rate is 1%. The initial guidance that came out said 10-year term with a 4% rate. That has changed twice. Now it's 2 years with a 1% term. The SBA fee is waived on these, and your first payment is not due for 6 months. It's technically due on month 7. That was changed in wording as well. So then we determine your maximum loan amount, 2.5 times of your trailing 12 months of payroll. How much is forgiven? Guys, listen to me when I say, just because that's your maximum loan amount does not mean that 100% of that will be forgiven. We have been provided with a calculator through a webinar that we go in and we calculate your maximum loan amount, and then we calculate what your estimated forgiveness is. And 99% of these, the forgiveness dollar is less than your loan amount. So if you have a PPP loan, please don't be upset in 8 weeks if there's a balance you're responsible for paying, okay? So then what is forgiven? What is forgiven is eligible expenses over 8 weeks starting on the date the loan was dispersed, not the date you applied, not the date that SBA approved it, the date the loan funded. So if you have an approval of it, I've talked to a lot of people, my bank gave me a number on Saturday and I'm closing on Friday. So eligible expenses starting on Friday when you close and the loan is dispersed, that going 8 weeks forward. So can you give your payroll for the last 2 weeks as an eligible expense? No, that payroll did not happen during the 8 weeks following disbursement. So what is eligible to be refunded or forgiven, excuse me? What's eligible to be forgiven is payroll paid over those 2 month period, utilities paid over that 2 month period or 8 week period, rent that you've paid, and or interest on a covered mortgage. If you work from home, we get this a lot. I'm a self-employed and I work from home. I have business use of home on my tax returns. We're not using that. We like to have the mortgage statement in the name of the business. Same with your utilities. And so it's payroll over 8 weeks, utilities, rent, and interest on a covered mortgage over that 8-week period. And so 2.5 times is the multiplier for the maximum loan amount. 2 times is the multiplier for the forgiveness. So if you have not had this conversation with your lender, I would ask them and verify, did you run a risk calculation worksheet, which is the name of the form? Did you run a risk calculation worksheet to determine what my forgiveness dollars will be? Okay. So those are the main differences between the EIDL and the PPP. One goes through the government, cheap money, 3.75%, 30 years. One goes through the bank, 1%, 2-year loan, and we hope the majority of it will be forgiven. Okay. So what can the funds be used for? I think I touched on that. The EIDL loan is for fixed debt, payroll, AP, utilities, and other debts and bills. And the PPP is for payroll, mortgage, interest only, rent, and utilities. A question we receive a lot is, well, I got my EIDL loan and I've already used that for payroll. Can I use the PPP loan for payroll? And the answer is no. The funds cannot be used towards the same project cost. The PPP is Paycheck Protection Program. The goal of it is to keep people employed. Either you're going to pay them as the business owner or they're going to go stand in line at unemployment and get paid. We have received some of the customers that we called and said, oh, you're approved. One said, great, I can pay my car off now. No, that's not factual. One said, I can pay all my back rent. No, we can't do that. One said, I can put this money in savings. Thank you. No, you can't. It has to be used towards eligible cost or it will not be forgiven. And this has moved so fast, and I don't want to scare you guys, but I want you to know that the SBA has put in a hold harmless agreement for the lender. So when you sign your application and on page 2, you're initialing down that I agreed to spend the money on this, I attest to this, that is your attestation that you are giving us the information that is true and correct. Lenders are not required to validate your information. That's why this is moving so fast, is because a lot of lenders are not doing their due diligence on the front end. If you give us false information, you will be, and or you use the funds towards a non-eligible cost, you will be held personally liable. And I'll give you the wording. It says, if you misuse the funds, the borrower will be expected to repay any funds misused and subject to additional liability, such as charges for fraud. And so everybody's saying, this is free money, go get it. And it's processing so fast, nobody's gonna be able to know. They will. When we upload your application into the system, we do have to enter your owner's name and the owner's social security number, even though these are non-recourse, no collateral, no guarantee loans. And if you misuse the funds, you will be personally liable and you can be charged with fraud. And so we're trying to let all of our customers know that. I feel like this has been a this has been a lesson on how well the media actually portrays and gives out factual information, because everything we're hearing on the news is not factual, or most of it's not. So on the PPP loan, eligible project cost, you will be held personally responsible. You're attesting to the information you're giving us. And please note that the majority of these will not be 100% forgiven based on the calculation. So don't be surprised if you have dollars left at the end of the 8 weeks. Okay. I missed the first round. Now what? Fantastic news. I'm so glad you asked. We're all gearing up over here to bring in cots and sleep in the bank. And so we are, fortunately, the Congress is getting together and they have agreed to fund the project and put more dollars into this project. And The anticipation is that these dollars will go live on Wednesday or Thursday at the latest. And so if you missed round one of funding, again, this was supposed to, 349 billion was supposed to last for 3 months, and it lasted for 14 days. There is round two coming. We are told it's another 300 billion. A portion of that will go towards the PPP, and a portion of that will go to the EIDL loan, because the EIDL loan also ran out of funds. We did listen to a webinar last week, and regardless of your political affiliation, the Republicans are pushing for all of these dollars to go into the EIDL and the PPP. The Democrats are pushing for some of this to go towards other items. We were told by a lobbyist on the Hill that he is intimately involved with Senator Mitch McConnell's staff, and when these funds run out again, the Republicans plan on putting more money towards the project. And so as long as the Democrats are still wanting to lower the dollars going towards the PPP, as soon as those exhaust, the Republicans are going to push for more dollars. I mean, at the end of the day, guys, either we're funding these people through the PPP, or they're going to be paid through unemployment. The government's going to foot the bill either way. One more thing I do want to mention on the PPP, and then we'll open it up for questions, is I laid everybody off. Now what? So the purpose is Paycheck Protection Program. If you had 10 employees, I highly encourage you to have 10 employees over the next 8 weeks. You are not penalized if you've laid somebody off, if you rehire them. You will be penalized if your number of employees has decreased. And so if you had 10 last year and now you're down to 5, you will be penalized because you had a staff reduction. So restaurants, I had a conversation with a restaurant that stated, I had 26 employees, now I have 13. I don't need the dishwasher or the cook. Understood, Governor Abbott has not opened up the restaurants, and so get it. However, you can still pay your dishwasher and your cook with the funds from this program, because if you're not paying them, again, they're going to go stand in the unemployment line. And so ultimately what we're trying to do with the PPP is allow people to continue to earn their 100% of their wages and not take a reduction through the unemployment line. Amanda, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it well.
I will touch on, actually, I'll touch on one more thing. It is for all of those that are self-employed. The question has come up with, well, how does that work? Because I don't have W-2 employees. I only have 1099 employees. If you 1099 somebody, that 1099 employee has to apply separately. So we can count 1099 income coming in. We can't count 1099 income going out. That specific person has to apply separately. If you are self-employed and you have not filed your 2019 tax returns, the requirement now is that you will complete a Schedule C, a year-end Schedule C, 12/31/19. We've received a lot of pushback on this because I don't know my numbers. We can't help you with that. You're giving us the information and you're attesting on the application that the information is true and correct, so we have to go off of your numbers. K1 income, a lot of K1 income is not being included. Limited partner, if you're a limited partner of a partnership, that income is not included as reimbursable. So there's a lot of loopholes and there's a lot of, for self-employed people that don't just have W-2 wages, it's kind of a difficult calculation. However, we just received guidance last Wednesday on how to do all that, and I'm happy to send you the specific information offline regarding your specific business.
So one of the easiest ways to kind of think about it, or how we think about it, right, is ensuring that, you know, when you're trying to do your calculation, what do you qualify for? You know, what do you really consider payroll? What can you document as payroll? And then essentially, how do you get taxed from the government? If it's income you get taxed on, then it's something that would qualify as, you know, to be put into the payroll cost. But at the end of the day, the borrower has to be able to provide the supporting documentation. But when you're not sure, I think you just really have to drill down to the aspect of, what does the government consider my income? How am I taxed as if you're self-employed, depending on how you file, what does the government tax me on that side of it? And then if you're the employer, right, who's paying the taxes? So the employer's paying taxes on W-2 wages, but not on 1099s. The 1099 employee is the one who is submitting their tax return and paying the taxes. And so when you separate it that way, it kind of assists you in figuring out, what do you think is eligible.
One more thing, I had another question on my agenda here is, okay, you got the PPP, now what? You're going to spend those dollars over the next 8 weeks, and at the end of the 8 weeks, your banker is going to require you to provide them with your payroll reports, including number of employees, your proof of your utility statements paid, your proof of your rent paid, and your proof of your mortgage interest paid. After we get those reports at the end of the 8 weeks, the bank turns around, puts together a pretty package, puts a bow on it, and sends it up to the SBA. And then the SBA is supposed to process these and give us the loan forgiveness. The first thing we read was 15 days. I don't think that's happening. But ultimately, this whole process of loan being forgiven should be completed within the 6 months before your first payment is due. Okay. All right, I'll open it up to questions from there.
Amy Abels had put out there if there is a good website, and she might post it. I would invite you, if you have some specific questions, to visit the U.S. Treasury website. There is a long list of FAQs that's been compiled over the last 2 to 3 weeks, and the Treasury website has PDFs and links to anything and everything related to the PPP program. And we can also, I don't have it in front of me, but we can get the customer service contact email and phone number for the EIDL loan applications. If anybody's trying to find an update and they don't know who to contact, we can get that information out to you as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if your landlord has given you a deferral in your rent, how does that play into qualifying as part of the protection or part of the expense, or does it?
That's a good question. We just had that this morning from somebody else. It has to be an expense that was paid. And so, for example, we're offering our customers a 90-day deferral on their loans. And so we're monitoring that if you got the deferral, we're not adding into our risk calculation the interest that you would have paid. Now you can pay it and then it can be forgiven, but if it's not paid, it cannot be forgiven.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good question. Anybody else?
There are a couple of questions in the Q&A feature.
I don't see it, Amy. Can you read them to us?
I think Amanda can see them because she's been answering them.
Yeah, so one of the questions was, is there assistance for businesses starting out, or new businesses, or maybe someone that wasn't in business last year or the prior year? And so basically you've got to be able to show that you were in operations and had employees and payroll costs as of February 15th, 2020. And so you would still do the average, basically for February and March, and you still use the same calculation, but it's only going to be limited to those months and your ability to show that the company was in operations with those eligible costs on or before February 15th. And then the other question was, I haven't heard back from the SBA on my EIDL loan. Are those still going through? Are they still processing them, or is it all about PPP right now? And so the EIDL loans are being processed by a completely separate group as far as where the government's concerned, and so those are still being processed. They don't cross over with the PPP as far as where your application is, or did everybody who applied for an EIDL loan 6 weeks ago, did they get pushed to the side when the PPP loans dropped? And no, they're processed in two completely different channels, with the PPP loan going through the lenders and the EIDL loan going through the SBA website itself.
I'll add to that as well. We were told originally that from application till the time you heard from a loan agent on the EIDL loan will be 4 weeks. And so that was the big heartburn with, I can't wait 4 weeks for my funds. And that's when they offered the up to $10,000 advance, which they're calling the EIDL advance, which later we found was $1,000 per head, per employee. And so I would track, whoever asked that, I would track back to the date you applied. And if it's been 4 weeks, then I would call the 800 number for assistance because you should have heard something within 4 weeks.
We have another cute question. It says, is Southstar taking applications for non-banking independent contractors?
We are not denying an application. However, we are doing the best we can to process our current customer applications first. But they are going in date that the application was received. And so if we received an application today, you'd be put at the end of the queue. Good question. And unfortunately, there's banks out there that aren't doing the PPP loan. And my heart hurts for those businesses because Wells Fargo's not helping, Compass isn't helping, Chase isn't helping. And so you turn to the community bank and we're swamped. I mean, I remember when we first set this program up, the president said, Alexis, how many applications do you think you're going to get? And I said, I don't know, 50 to 100 maybe. And we've quadrupled that. I mean, the amount of applications have been very overwhelming. My team has worked 12 to 16-hour days for the last 3 weeks, and it's exhausting. We're ready for this to come to a head. Something else I'll mention is somebody said, okay, great, this is for 8 weeks, paycheck protection for 8 weeks. Then what? What if the government's not open in 8 weeks? Or what if everybody's still on lockdown? We don't know. We don't have an answer to that. Somebody mentioned that it may be PPP 2.0, and we're not ready for that. But ultimately, this is just an 8-week paycheck protection program is what it is, to keep people out of the unemployment line. The government does not have the manpower to process these applications, so they push them down to the banks with very little guidance and very little requirements on the bank side to process these through. And so.
It looks like we have one more question. The question is, I heard original amount of EIDL loans was up to 2 million. Then recently I heard 15,000 was the max. What is the current info that you have?
The current info we have is the max EIDL loan is $2 million. The 15,000 may be confused with the $10,000 advance, but the EIDL loan maximum loan amount is 2 million. And secondly, on the EIDL loan, you as the business owner, you don't determine your loan amount. Your loan agent determines your loan amount. And we poked and prodded to say, what's the multiple there? How are you guys determining this? Somebody said 4 times fixed OPEX, monthly OPEX. Somebody said 6 times fixed OPEX. And so we have no idea how the EIDLs are calculating your loan amount. Because in the application, you put in there how much you want, and we laughed around here saying this is almost like getting an appraisal when the appraiser asks for a copy of the sales contract. We're just trying to get to the same number. But you do not determine your loan amount on the EIDL. The loan agent will determine how much you qualify for. And the word on the street is 4 to 6 times fixed monthly OPEX is what we're being told. So, yeah. I hope this was helpful. I really do. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And I'll be honest, what your banker may have told you last Thursday is probably has changed since then. So please be patient with your banks. Be patient with your banker. This has been a I'll use classy language. We're calling this a Class A crap show is what this is, because ultimately this has been, it's been very overwhelming. Yes. Okay. I see someone says they can't even get a hold of their banker. You're not the only one. I know somebody from Wells Fargo on Sunday told me that they submitted an application and never heard anything. And next thing they heard was the funds were out. That came hard and fast on Friday. We all kind of knew on Monday that the funds, based on the applications, the funds would be exhausted by Friday. But we were literally midstream uploading applications. And as slow as the government is to get anything passed, in the system, it's a loan product in a drop-down box. And the way we were notified is when we went to upload a new application and the product was no longer available in the drop-down box. So as slow as they are to get everything passed, they sure were quick to pull the trigger on those dollars. I do know that I read yesterday that there's a lawsuit at Wells Fargo because they prioritized by dollar amount, which makes me believe that that's why the first fund exhausted so fast with these large corporations. I heard Shake Shack got $10 million and they're returning it. I heard Chris qualified for 20 million because they had 2 different entities. I don't know if they're returning those dollars or not, but ultimately the plan was for these dollars to go towards small businesses. And their definition of a small business is any business with 500 employees or less. And then there's some more red tape behind that, but ultimately it's 500 employees or less qualified. All right.
This was a great presentation. I think you answered a lot of questions that I had been hearing and needing. And I know that people on the call can reach out to Alexis and Amanda only if you have a valid question and need a loan. They're busy. Looks like we got a couple of, we got a lot of thank yous, So that's a good thing. Thanks a lot. Everyone on the phone, if you got questions, contact Alexis and Amanda. Thank you to CBI Group. Amy, do we have anything else?
I think we're done here. Thank you, ladies.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.